So I want to give an introduction to the excellence in breeding and explain from our perspective what we want to achieve this week. Before I introduce excellence in breeding, I guess I'll very briefly introduce myself. My name's Michael Quinn. I have been in this role since August last year. One of the first things I did was visit many of the CG breeding centres, including ITA here, so it's fantastic to be back. I've studied and worked in Australia previously in the last 13, 14 years in breeding across the public sector and private sector in both hybrid and fixed line breeding. And I've been in agriculture my whole life, having grown up on a family farm which was focused on wheat and sheep, where we did our own sheep breeding also. So that's me, and this is the Excellence in Breeding platform. So the objective of the platform is to accelerate and increase rates of genetic gain by breeding programs targeting the developing world. That's what we're here to achieve, and we're here to do it together with the scientists and breeders and breeding teams within the CGIAR. So how we do this? Working with those people, like I just said, all of the geneticists, the genotypers, phenotypers, bioinformaticians, the biometric specialists, to first define what is best practice, what are the tools and services that will increase rates of genetic gain per dollar invested, and then working with the breeding teams to ensure that this can be implemented. We're here to enable your work and to enable your best work. So the important point here is that this should be seen as your platform. I mean, coming to Ishmael's point this morning that there have been a lot of promises. Well, this is not us coming in with another promise. This is us coming in saying, we want to work with you to really drive these changes and drive these improvements. We're doing our best across the 5 modules to ensure that we've got expertise for any particular thing that may want to be addressed, and where we don't have it ourselves, we're sourcing it from wherever we can. Within the CGIAR itself, there are so many really talented scientists and breeders within the CG that we can pull together as a community across the centres to lift each other up. But even advanced research institutes or the private sector, we've got Stella Salvo here from Monsanto this week, and she's obviously at Monsanto, and particularly Stella has worked tirelessly with the Cowpea program to work with them on exactly these sorts of things. So the point I'm making is that please see this as your platform, and you'll get as much out of it as what you put into the process, and we're in this together. So the platform is, I wouldn't say it's divided into 5 modules, because these are certainly not standalone silos. We have 5 modules, which across the 5, it's anticipated that we'll have the focus and the expertise for any particular improvement or intervention that's wanting to be enabled within a breeding process. So module 1 is about, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because we will do that next. We'll explain what each of these mean. But module 1 is about breeding program management. Module 2, optimising breeding schemes. Module 3 is genotyping and sequencing services. Module 4 is all about phenotyping. And module 5 is bioinformatics, biometry and data management. And then underpinning all of this, or supporting all of this, is the Toolbox, which I'll explain soon. So really, the way I see it, module 1 is the what. What is it that we're focused on and achieving? What's the end goal, the end target? Module 2 is the how. How do you put the strategy together to achieve the what? And then module 3, 4 and 5 are the tools and services that are required to achieve that. So within each of these modules, and they're the 5 of them up the top there, in green, they're the 5 modules really, we are being focused on, we've got these core areas of focus, and I'm not going to go into these because we're doing that next, but the point I'm making here is that the scope is broad, but we're still trying to maintain focus as best as possible. So just to describe the Toolbox, it's an online knowledge interface to access resources provided across the 5 modules. It's for communication, documentation of know-how, access to training and to service providers, and really any outputs that can be shared electronically. So there'll be discussion forums on there. There'll be online training material that you can do online. like I said, there'll be a whole range of different things. And it's for members, contributors and users. And I'll describe what each of those three groups are. So the members are really the main beneficiaries of the Excellence in Breeding. We're funded by both the CGIAR and the Gates Foundation, and they're wanting us to really drive these improvements and enable improvements for the CGIAR, and initially we'll be taking on 4 selected pilot NARS institutions and all of the crops that they're working on, and at least one of those will be here in West Africa. And over time, we'll be taking on a larger number as well. So there will be a membership agreement which has been sent out, which describes the commitment to work with excellence in breeding. So what that means is it's just acknowledgement that it's a relationship, that it's not just one direction, we're working together to make these things happen. So members will commit to a breeding program improvement process across each of the areas that we're covering in the modules. That's not to say that there have to be changes in each area, but we'll be working with breeding teams to look at each area, to look for opportunities for where things could perhaps be improved or optimised. There'll be full access to the Toolbox, including restricted member-only area parts of the Toolbox. And this is because there might be commercially sensitive information that you only want to share in a forum perhaps, or putting up your breeding scheme, or putting up how you're using your resources. So there will be restricted areas which you'd have full access to. Now there's potential to include over 100 individual breeding programs. So this is important to try and just grasp the size of the scope in which we're working. And this is why we have to have this, one of the reasons why we have to have this formalised relationship where we simply do not have the resources to be working with breeding programs that aren't getting value from excellence in breeding. So we're only really able to work with those that are going to be getting value, just because of the sheer number. So those 100 programs the way we'll interact with them will be through a decentralised, well, it says their training strategy, but it's really, I wouldn't necessarily call it training. I mean, that brings up this connotation of someone standing up the front telling scientists and breeders how to do things. That's not how we see this working. We see this as more of an interaction where we come to visit and we work with you to understand what your needs are and what your ambitions are for improvement, and work with you to enable those. So we'll be doing that through 4 regional hubs in South Asia, East and South Africa, West Africa and Latin America. I'm going to skip over that just in the interest of time. So one point I will make, is that there will be each breeding team with these membership agreements will have a team lead, which is nominated by the institutions, and it'll be that team leader which will be the key contact person for excellence in breeding to understand what the needs are and to follow up. This is when we come and visit. Like I said, we'll try and understand what needs to be enabled, but the intention is not then just to tick off back to another centre and then you won't hear from us again. We want to be in close and regular communication, and it'll be through that team leader, because otherwise we'll just have, there's so many people to be communicating with that we want to do this. We want to do it well rather than spread ourselves too thin. So this helps with that. So that's the explanation for why we're requiring that team lead to be nominated. Members will come from a whole range of CG institutions, some of which you might not have expected, like World Fish, for example. It's quite different to crop breeding, what they're doing there in fish. And there are a lot of similarities as well, though. And so, like I said, it's up to 100 potential teams. So, for example, I think ICRISAT has 20 individual breeding programs, and you look at the number of crops they're dealing with and the number of regions that they're breeding with as well, and so there's different combinations. And then there's contributors. I won't spend a long time on this. Really, contributors are anybody who's contributing to the effort. So if they're providing tools, know-how, skills, best practices, services, training, and a lot of these will be coming from the CGIAR itself. So some individuals might find themselves in a situation where they're both a member and a contributor, and that's great. Currently, we've got contributors that are coming from, like I just said, the CGIAR centres themselves, Cornell University, Diversity Array, or DART, you may know them by, DuPont Pioneer, they've changed their name, I'm not going to try and say it because I'll probably get it wrong, IBP, Monsanto, and Queensland University. So really, this is the most important slide of this whole presentation. It's really just I want to make it very clear what Excellence in Breeding is looking to get out of this week, and just to set expectations as well. So by the end of this week, we really want to come up with an optimisation plan, or another term could be an improvement plan. I mean, I don't really like that term because for some people they may think, oh, you're saying I'm not good enough. No, it's not saying that at all. It's saying that no matter how good any program is, there are always things that can be done, and any program is always evolving. So it's about Excellence in Breeding wanting to walk that journey with you to I guess enable you to evolve in the best way possible. So by the end of this week, we need to come up with a plan for each of the member, or for each of the breeding teams that are here. We want to identify what are the things that, with detail, that we're wanting to change and improve, and then what can Excellence in Breeding do to enable that, and then what are the decisions that need to be made by either the institution or by the scientists or breeders to actually make that happen, and with a schedule as well, because if we don't schedule this, then it could run the risk of becoming a pipe dream. That it's something we want to do one day. No, we need to hold all of ourselves accountable within Excellence in Breeding and within the breeding teams. So this week we'll be looking for these opportunities to identify exactly what it will be, and hopefully you'll be learning a lot through, whether it's from what Excellence in Breeding is presenting, or GOBI, or HTGP, or IGSS. Hopefully there'll be a lot of stimulation for thought, and you'll learn a lot about what new tools are being made available, and out of that hopefully we'll have material to actually include as part of the improvement plan. Another great source are the recommendations coming from BPAT. I understand that the BPAT process has recently been through IATA. I don't expect that the recommendations have come back yet, but I think it's probably not far off. So that's another source of another area in which we could look together to put an improvement plan in place. Yeah, like I said, it needs to be detailed to precisely what changes are being targeted. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. So from now.